true resilience. Scientifically, what's the definition of resilience? It's your innate biological ability, we all have it, to adapt, recover, and grow in the face of life's challenges. Now, resilience doesn't work in a vacuum. You need a little bit of healthy stress for resilience to show itself. But toxic resilience is really what we're talking about here. And it's what most of us have been trained, at least in medical training, or often from childhood, to believe is true resilience. And toxic resilience is like using that word resilience, and it's been morphed, and it's dark and sinister. So it's a mind over matter mindset. It's productivity at all costs. It doesn't understand your human limitations of rest and recovery. And that is what, you've been taught from a very young age. Tolerating large amounts of discomfort is what resilience is all about.
How does stress go from something that's good, motivating, that fuels these positive behaviors and potentially leaves one stronger on the other side, to something that's smoldering, that is a silent killer that we all talk about, that harms our lives, interferes with our ability to function?
That's a beautiful question. I think we can talk about so many factors that make healthy stress become unhealthy stress. And I think one of the key, so of course it's individual factors, but also broader societal factors, right? That really play a role in how we perceive stress and where our threshold is. And there's two main ideas that I want to kind of talk about when you're asking that question. The first is the canary in the coal mine. It's something that I've thought about very much, what I've experienced with many of my patients, and I personally experienced with that stampede of wild horses and continue to experience in different ways. I'm not a historian and I'm not much of a history buff, but I do know that in history, there's this analogy of canary in the coal mine. And that comes from when the coal miners would go down into the mines and they would toil and work for 16, 18 hours a day. And because humans are typically really bad at knowing what our limits are, they would take a caged bird, a canary, with them into the mines. And the canary would sing. And the minute the canary stopped singing, that's when the coal miners realized, wait a second, the air is bad. It's time to get out of the mines. And because they didn't know for themselves, like when the air got bad. And so they would come out of the mines. And that canary in the coal mine was their first sign of something gone awry. In many ways, we all have that canary inside of us that tells us, wait a second, this stress is moving from healthy to unhealthy. Some of us heed its warning early, so the canary might be like a whisper. But me and others didn't. So when I experienced that stampede of wild horses, chances are my body was telling me in different ways, hey, I think you're not sleeping enough. I don't think you're taking care of yourself. You're not resting as much as you should or decompressing in the right ways. And I probably didn't pay attention. And so I just kept going and going like many people do, thinking, oh, this is how life is supposed to be. And so you have to pay attention first to know what your canary is. And we can talk a little bit about that because everyone's canary is different. It can be headaches or chest pain, palpitations, abdominal pain, nausea, dizziness, fatigue, irritability. Now my canary is, because I've become a doctor with an expertise in stress, it's no longer that stampede of wild horses because that was a late stage canary. Now I typically, my husband will often say to me, I think you got to put the 5 resets back into play when I start getting irritable or a little bit snippy with him or my kids, like when I'm just a little bit, not as patient. And I know, okay, it's time. That canary is really singing its tune. And so the canary in the coal mine, you can think about, what is your canary? What is that stress symptom that seems to flare up anytime that stress is moving in the wrong direction? And then the second kind of idea that goes along with the canary in the coal mine is this idea of toxic resilience and the resilience myth. So when I was a medical resident and I was told by my doctor, it's just stress, try to relax, my first reaction was actually, what? Stress? Stress doesn't happen to people like me. I'm resilient. Because that's what I was taught. Yeah, I can handle it. I've been able to handle everything. When in fact, I was living the resilience myth, which is that resilient people don't get burned out and they certainly don't feel stressed. And we know categorically based on the science that is false. In fact, a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that resilience, while it's protective, it's not enough to prevent burnout and unhealthy stress. And so when you're talking about resilience and this idea of the resilience myth, we also have to talk about toxic resilience. And when you move from healthy stress to unhealthy stress, how does that happen? Another, besides the individual factors of canary in the coal mine, there is this broader global factor of toxic resilience. And what is that? It simply means that, true resilience, scientifically, what's the definition of resilience? It's your innate biological ability, we all have it, to adapt, recover, and grow in the face of life's challenges. Now, resilience doesn't work in a vacuum. You need a little bit of healthy stress for resilience to show itself. But toxic resilience is really what we're talking about here. And it's what most of us have been trained, at least in medical training, or often from childhood, to believe is true resilience. And toxic resilience is like using that word resilience, and it's been morphed, and it's dark and sinister. So it's a mind over matter mindset. It's productivity at all costs. It doesn't understand your human limitations of rest and recovery. And that is what, you've been taught from a very young age. Tolerating large amounts of discomfort is what resilience is all about.
No pain, no gain, right?
No pain, no gain. And, Energizer Bunny, just keep going. Or in the UK, keep calm and carry on. Yeah. And so if that's what you've been taught, like we all have been taught, particularly in the medical community, very much so, then it is very easy to see how healthy, productive stress could easily go off the rails and become unhealthy stress.